Hey guys, welcome back to Bombchu. I'm Austin and today I'll be covering the Humble Monthly Bundle from August 2017. This is the 12th monthly bundle review I've done, which means I've been doing this for a year. I'm gonna pretend Humble decided to celebrate this milestone by adding an extra game this time, bringing us a total of 9 games, 8 for Steam, and a smaller experimental bundle exclusive game, as well as the final issue of the comic UnderWhere. That means we have a lot to cover, so let's get to it. I'll be giving my first impressions of each game and determining if they're games I'd like to continue playing. This month's exclusive title is Quiet City, from the developer of Steven's Sausage Roll. Matching the title, this is a very quiet game with no music and very little sound. You walk around a small city with several spots to interact with. Each spot has you either leave something behind or leaves a person there, with each person doing a different activity. Once you fill every spot, you become an ethereal being and visit each person, getting to hear their reason for quitting whatever they were doing. A short story sequence plays out, and that's the end. In all, it takes less than 5 minutes to complete. If you got nothing out of games like The Graveyard, you probably won't get much out of this either. Short interactive experiences can be pretty divisive and spark conversation about what can really be considered a game, or how is this being sold for money. Whatever your stance, I think at the very least, it's a good fit for a Humble exclusive, even though it may not be one of my favorites. The first Steam game this month is Nongunz, an action roguelike. First, I have to address the atmosphere. The black and white and very detailed pixel art looks great and sets the tone well for a dark dungeon filled with gruesome monsters and traps. And the music is understated, with a simple guitar and light chanting voice. This game really doesn't tell you much about anything. So if you want to go in without the tiny amount of knowledge I managed to gain, you may just want to skip ahead to the time on screen. You have a minimal HUD, and one of the first things you'll notice is that every time you shoot, this number down here goes up. Is that a count of how many bullets I've shot? Do I want that to be low? Before long, you'll find out that that is money. And yes, you do earn money from shooting bullets. You earn much more if you're killing enemies with those bullets or finding treasure, but you can very well stand in the shop and shoot with your starter gun that has infinite ammo until you have enough money to buy everything you want. And of course I tried this out, and no, I wouldn't do it again. I didn't notice it until later in my playthrough, so I don't know if it applies to all chests, but at the very least, many chests cost health to open. The items inside have some symbols on them hinting at what they do, like I think this one increases attack speed? The only way I've seen to get health back is by killing enemies, which heals you just a bit. The goal of the area seems to be to defeat the boss, though I do such a small amount of damage to him I'm not sure if I'll ever be able to finish him off. Level layouts are, of course, random, and every time you die the layout will change. Upon dying you have the option to go right back into the castle, or to go through town before heading inside. There's a monument with several guns and skulls, and you seem to be able to deposit money into the item of your choice, but you lose all your money upon dying and are locked out of the town when you enter the castle. Either defeating the boss lets you out into town, or you're expected to shoot your way to earning an item. I tried making 3 deposits which totaled around 300 currency and saw no change, so I give up on trying to grind it out. And that's everything I know. I'm hoping some of my friends start this one up so we can discuss and figure out more about it, because I'd really like to see what's past the first boss. If you're a fan of roguelikes, I think you'll feel right at home here. Our next game is One Piece Burning Blood, a fighting game based on the anime. I haven't ever watched the show, and if you haven't either, don't expect to understand what's going on. But if you enjoy fast, flashy combat, you'll likely have a good time anyways. Before you can do anything, you have to complete a tutorial that teaches you a couple of basics. From there, more of the story mode is unlocked, along with a mode that allows you to take on bounties for wanted characters. I got to experiment a bit here with some other characters. Each character can be leveled up and made stronger for battles that aren't against people. A friend and fan of the show told me Luffy is typically pretty easy to play, while some characters like Nami are harder to figure out without knowing their moves from the show. And that's why I tried Nami. Definitely not because of her boobs. I can confirm that having not seen the show, I could not figure out her unique move. She did a pose, made some noise, and stood still. And I'm certain I was supposed to do something else, but I couldn't figure out what. Still, there are plenty of characters to play that have straightforward moves, like blasting your opponent with your giant balls and sinking a ship with them. I think I would enjoy this one a lot more if I watched the show, but it's flashy and fun enough, I just may continue on to see if I can figure out what the hell is going on. Next up is Offworld Trading Company, an economic strategy game from the designer of Civilization 4. I didn't expect to like this one, but I didn't expect to enjoy Civilization either, and both took me by surprise. This is a real-time strategy game, but rather than building troops and fighting in combat, you're trying to make more money than your opponents by racing to control more resources. You manage and grow a base of operations. Everything you run consumes certain resources, so you have to balance the needs of your base with expanding out to build more factories that make different resources that you can use to build or sell. Everything comes down to resources, and the UI reflects this. The left portion of the screen shows how much you have of everything, if you're losing more than you're making, how much those resources are selling for, and what buildings you can make to generate more. Buildings get bonuses for being next to buildings of the same type, or buildings that generate the resource the new building consumes. This is made really easy to figure out as any spot you can place a building is highlighted, with better spots drawn in a brighter color to attract more attention. This could have been a really tedious game, but a lot of work went into the design and the interface to make decisions much easier to make and execute. This comes with multiplayer, and I definitely plan to try out the co-op with some friends. As much as I struggle with RTS games, I usually can't contribute, but here I think I could really be a valuable ally. Game 5 is Pillars of Eternity, a kickstarted isometric RPG from Obsidian. I would have been happy to do this game myself, but Andron, the founder of Bombchu, is a huge fan of Obsidian games, and he backed this game on Kickstarter. So it would be almost wrong of me to give my thoughts with only a little bit of playtime. Here he is to talk about it.
Pillars of Eternity is an Infinity Engine-style RPG developed by Obsidian Entertainment. It was a highly successful Kickstarter and evolved into one of the deepest RPGs around on Steam or anywhere else, honestly. It plays a lot like a game of D&D where you have to roll a character, pick your class, your race, your background, and everything else before you start off, and then you also have to actually allocate your skill points similar again to D&D. Once you get into the game, it kicks you off in like a little caravan. You have to do some adventure, which I won't spoil here, but basically it boils down to you are an adventurer, some things happen, and eventually you have to go strike on your own to defeat the evil in the world. It's an RPG, so that story is going to be about the same anywhere you go. Anyway, once the game kicks off and you're able to get a little control over your people, you actually learn that you have control over more than just yourself. You actually have a full party at your disposal. At the beginning you only get 2 people, but later on you can get up to 4 or even I think 5 people at the end. What newcomers may have to worry about when they start playing this game though is the controls. It's not like your typical MOBA or anything like that. It actually moves a lot like old RTSs of yesteryear, such as StarCraft or Warcraft, back when you couldn't actually see the whole map and you had to go uncover the map. To do this, you have to move your characters around the map using right clicks or left clicks. Each one does a different thing. Or you can actually move them autonomously and have one go in one direction, the other go in the other direction, but you also can group them using a drag click, things like that. When you get into combat though, that's where the Infinity Engine style gameplay comes in. If you've never heard of an Infinity Engine style game, it's basically one where the action is completely active at all times until you pause it and issue commands. What this means is you engage in combat and the game immediately pauses if you have the option, or you can turn it to where it doesn't pause until you let it and you let the action play out. You pause, you interject, and actually say, let me do this instead. What Pillars of Eternity does right though is it gives you enough options during combat to make it really feel like a D&D game. As you start building up and getting more people, you get access to spells, magic, different moves, and you can decide to really just wreck shop in every single battle. The game becomes a session of D&D almost, because there's decisions to make, there's ways to mess over other people, there's points where certain characters will tell you, hey, we need to camp out, then another one will say, hey, we should keep going, and if you decide to camp out, that other character may disappear the next day and never come back. Like, that's how deep this game goes, and it's amazing that they're able to do all this within what used to be a Kickstarter game, and now is definitely, as much as I want to say it's an indie game, it's not anymore. It's a fantastic game with lots of things to do, and the only stopping point is the difficulty of getting used to the fighting, getting used to the movement, and learning how to play an Infinity Engine style game, as well as get immersed in a world where it's very D&D heavy, very focused on RPG elements, and very deep, immersive, and with lots of freedom.
This leads us to NBA 2K17. If you've ever watched us on Super Sunday, you'll know that I don't have a mind for sports.
So say like you're on defense right now, so that's how your guys are going to be assembled.
Yeah, I get that. I just don't know
and you
the strategic value of any one of those.
Basically, Y is kind of everything I'm gonna go wrong. B's gonna be
So I have no idea what you're going to... Okay, yeah.
What I do have is a buddy who's been playing the NBA 2K series since the early days, so here's Ryan to give his thoughts.
Here we have the next game in the NBA 2K series, 2K17. Now I've been playing this series since the early years when Iverson was the unofficial mascot, but since the game doesn't have drastic changes from year to year, I ended up skipping 2K16. So here I'm going from 2K15 to 2K17, so there are definitely a lot of unexpected changes. The first thing that jumps out to you when you get a game going is the attention to detail. I mean, shooting motions perfectly capture the real thing, from Stephen Curry to Lou Williams. Every year this series reaches for a new level of realism, and this year a lot of the improvement went to player reactions and crowd attentiveness. Now there's a major jump in difficulty from 2K15, stemming mostly from the extremely strong defense from the AI. Specifically, bodies are no longer easy to get around, regardless of speed or dribble moves. Like here I am with Allen Iverson, king of the crossover, trying to put the moves on this weak-ass defender Randy Foye, and he's not biting. Also, driving to the basket is often met with contact, which will alter your shot and decrease the chance of it going in. So to summarize, gone are the days of blowing by someone and pressing the shoot button from the free throw line expecting some flush. You'll notice right away the changes to the shooting mechanisms, as you now aim to fill the shooting meter all the way to the top. Meters can fill up pretty quickly though, depending on the player, so I would suggest spending some time in the practice gym to get a feel for some of your favorite shooters. And rushing into your shot can sometimes force you to shoot a leaning or sideways jumper. Also, the game now has 3 different ways to pass, which for me so far has been 3 different ways to turn the ball over. I mean, I understand the realness they were going for, but it makes it much harder to hit an open man in a split second when trying to decide which button to use. Veteran players may not find this useful, but newcomers to the series may want to try running through 2KU. Basically, it'll put you through a live scrimmage, and as you play, you'll be introduced to different controls and moves. Pretty helpful if you want the basics, though I wish it were a little more responsive to your scrimmage. One thing I expect to get more and more advanced every year is the My Career mode, and man, 2K17 did not disappoint. Making the game much more than just basketball, 2K17 brings your character to life with a full story, starting from your days as a college freshman to living your dream as an NBA superstar. You know the details over the top when selecting your player's wingspan and shoulder width is affecting his overall rating. The story is a lot to get through, but not for the lack of creativity. You start off as a graduated high school student, making his college one and done choice. Definitely not going to OU. You live the life of a college ball player by going through Midnight Madness practice, attending class, and playing a series of games to raise your draft stock. After an invite from Coach K to play with the big dogs in a Team USA exhibition, it's finally draft day. And now that you're a pro, time will be spent hitting the practice gym, texting coaches and players, and of course, playing ball. I'll definitely be playing more, and I can see that my next 50 hours in this game will be well spent.
Next is War for the Overworld, a dungeon management RTS. You build dungeons underground to fight off anyone who invades you, as well as to build out a path to destroy your enemies. It's very much an RTS. You attract units by building specific rooms like a barracks for basic soldiers, and you build other rooms to keep them happy so they'll keep working for you, like places to eat and sleep. Their needs evolve as they get higher in rank, so to keep them happy, newer, more interesting rooms have to be built, like a tavern. Rooms have space requirements, most of them requiring 3x3 squares, though they can be expanded beyond that to accommodate more units. Before you can build, you'll have to dig out an area, as well as claim the tiles underneath. This prevents you from building over your opponent's area. Over time, you'll also earn sins, which are skill points you can use to learn new buildings and spells. Spells can be cast at the cost of mana, and have all sorts of effects like healing troops, or getting vision of the map somewhere you haven't been yet. Fans of the old Dungeon Keeper games will likely feel right at home here, though for me, it's a bit too much micromanagement, which I just don't enjoy. I won't be continuing this one. Game 8 is Overcooked, a co-op cooking game. You can technically play single player, but it's really made for co-op, as you need both your chefs working fast to keep up with demand. As you can see from me playing alone, there's a lot of time wasted. Unfortunately, co-op is local only, so no playing with friends on the internet, which is a real shame. Luckily, my wife was interested in playing, so I got to try out the game as intended. As soon as I jumped into co-op, I noticed that the first level had a slightly different layout, blocking both chefs off from each other to drive home the point that each player should be focusing on part of the tasks, and not all of them, sharing a table in the center so they can pass parts off to the other player for the next task. As the levels progress, meals get more involved, and obstacles start to show up. My favorite so far was this level on a ship, where the tables slide every once in a while, forcing you and your partner to switch roles. If you want to do well, you'll have to communicate and be aware of your partner's needs. The controls are very simple. You move with the joystick, use A to pick up or put down things, and X to interact, like chop vegetables or wash dishes. The complexity comes from figuring out how to efficiently work with your partner, so this is a great game to play with your significant other, whether they're into games or not. My wife and I had a ton of laughs, and despite how hectic things got, we really liked it. We can't wait to play more. Our final game is Wuppo, a strange but adorable action-adventure game. After a story section that moves a bit slow, you're dropped into the wilderness and are given a gum gun. Almost immediately, you can trigger an optional boss fight. This is more my style. Quickly, you're sent off into a world with a lot of ways you can go. It's almost overwhelming. Throughout the world, you'll find items which you can put on your head to use. Some are for fighting, some light the way, some are for healing. There's a vast array of items you can pick up. There are also collectible film strips, which can be delivered to an NPC for some backstory, as well as a health upgrade. You also seem to earn health upgrades by helping other Wums in distress. The combat and exploration is fun, the dialogue is silly, and the art style is cute as can be. I'm still not quite sure what this game is about or who to recommend it to, but I'll definitely be continuing on. Last is the comic included with the bundle, UnderWhere. This bundle brings the final issue of 4, though if you missed any of the last 3 bundles, it looks like they included the first 3 issues here as well. My opinion hasn't changed much with this last issue, so if you want to hear my short thoughts on this comic, you can check out my review of the May bundle. It's a decent distraction, but I don't think anyone is buying the bundle for the bonus comic. So overall, how was this bundle? Despite having 9 games, there was no filler here. There was a ton of variety, and while some games might not appeal to everyone, these were all pretty solid entries within their own genres. I didn't own any of these, and I had been looking at buying Overcooked and Wuppo recently. Once again, there was no debut game, and at this point, I think that's just not happening anymore. This was also the 3rd month in a row that we got a game from Stardock Entertainment, so I'm predicting we may get Sins of a Solar Empire Rebellion next month. So how much bang for your buck was there? To total everything up, paying full price, these would all rack up a cost of a whopping $244. Getting all these at their lowest sale price would cost a more familiar $84. This is an extremely high value going off of MSRP, but the sale price total is still nothing to scoff at. This was a great bundle, and I'm especially excited to keep going with Overcooked. Next month's bundle has Killing Floor 2, and I can't wait to see what else is in there. Catch you next time.